UAS Sustainability Committee, and we are a group of faculty and staff at UAS that have a charge to basically promote conservation practices and sustainability at UAS, but we also do a lot of liaising with the community as well, which of course is exemplified by our panelists who have come from around Southeast Alaska today. So I just want to introduce a couple of other Sustainability Committee members that will be helping to moderate the panel, and I'll also call out some of the other committee members that I see in the audience. Sonia Nagorski will also be a moderator here. She's an environmental science professor. And then we have Will Elliott, who will also be a moderator. Thanks, Will, English professor. And then in the audience, I also see some of our other committee members. I see Susan Kendig, chemistry and biology professor. I see Kevin Meyer, English professor. So what we have planned for you today is to have a discussion about sustainability in Southeast Alaska, in our communities. And so for the past few years, the committee has decided to have a central theme throughout the year that helps to guide what we do. And so some of you may have seen our articles that we have in the Juneau Empire. We run a monthly column called Sustainable Alaska that rotates through different faculty and staff that share various thoughts about sustainability in Alaska. So that theme will be prevalent in that column. Our theme this year is disaster and resilience. So we are obviously facing some challenging times in both our social and ecological environments, but a big part of sustainability is that we are resilient as well. So we would like to kind of turn some of these challenges that we're facing around into a positive way and think about how we can be resilient. And so we have some questions that we've prepared for the panel that we'll get at this theme of disaster and resilience. So what we have planned is for the panelists to each introduce themselves and their organizations. And then we have, as a committee, prepared 5 questions that the panelists have received in advance. And we have these questions to guide our discussion, but it's fluid, and we expect that we'll deviate from some of the prepared questions, but we hope we can get to all 5. If we don't, that's fine too. And we want to have some time at the end for questions from the audience. So because we're in the Zoom format, we have the chat function, which is nice. And so if you do think of a question, please just put that in the chat and I'll keep track of that. And then as we have time, we'll address some of those questions at the end of the panel. All right, so I just want to introduce briefly each panelist, and then I'll turn the floor over to each individual panelist as well. So we have joining us Charlie Harrington, who is the marketing manager from Eagle Crest, Lindsey Johnson with Fairweather Ski Works, Lindsey Pierce, environmental technician with Tlingit Haida, Central Council Tlingit Haida Indian Tribes of Alaska. We have Elaine Schroeder, co-chair of 350 Juneau, and Kylie Ray, co-owner of Panhandle Produce. So let's just start in alphabetical order. So Charlie, would you like to start us off with a bit of background about yourself and Eagle Crest and anything else you'd like to share with respect to sustainability?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm Charlie Harrington. I've lived in Juneau since 2015, and most of that time I've been at Eagle Crest doing marketing work up here. Thanks for having us on the panel. It's really nice to hear from winter voices. I think Juneau's often summer focused, so it's good to be here. And I live here for the winters. It's also nice to see Lindsey from Haines representing the snow community. So Eagle Crest, though, is by definition a small community ski area. But I think there's an important distinction to make, that the word small applies to community and not ski area. And we're a pretty big mountain, and I've spent my whole life around the industry. And it's my experience that we have way more in common with large North American ski areas. we're not your average small community skier. We're a big one. We have 640 acres, challenging terrain, dedicated learning area, and oftentimes a lot of snow like last winter. So what do we have in common with other small ski areas is sort of our limited resources. The big ones have more tools than us, but I think part of that that's good for us is it creates a outside the box culture of problem solving up here that I think ultimately helps us with our sustainability.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks very much for that overview of Eagle Crest. Next, we'll go to Lindsey Johnson with Fairweather Ski Works. Oh, Lindsey, you're on mute.
Okay, how about now? How about now? All right. Hi, I'm Lindsey Johnson. I'm one of the co-owners of Fairweather Ski Works here in Haines. I'm also a commercial salmon troller. And let's see, Fairweather is a small, but Alaska's only ski and snowboard manufacturer. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. I have not been on Zoom very much in the past year, like everyone else, so I'm catching up. I guess we're really excited to be part of this discussion and see, likewise, see Charlie and Panhandle produce there, and everyone else. I'm sorry. What about sustainability? It's been a topic kind of since the beginning of our business here. I was born and raised in Southeast and met my husband up in, and now business partner, up in South Central, and Haines became our home and the location for this business, with the balance between the ocean and the mountains, and there's a pardon me, there's just a sustainability and life in Southeast Alaska is a balance between a lot of different components, and it's exciting to be able to talk about that. Hopefully I'll get myself together here a little bit more, and yeah, I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say about that and talk more about what we're doing in that respect.
Thanks, Lindsey, and don't be nervous at all. You did great. This is a very strange format. It's so strange, but you did great. Thank you. Yeah, this is totally friendly, non-threatening environment. So don't worry about anything you say or how you say it. We're just here to have a discussion. Hopefully it'll be fun. So thanks, Lindsey.
Okay.
All right, and we have another Lindsey, Lindsey Pierce from Central Council.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me here today. My name is Lindsey Pierce. I'm the environmental technician with Tlingit and Haida. My family is from Southeast, but myself, I grew up in Seattle and then moved to Colorado to earn my bachelor's in anthropology from Fort Lewis. But I've been in Juneau almost 6 years, and I've been with Tlingit and Haida for 3 years now. A little bit about our department. It is growing fast, and we are very excited to be a part of this conversation because we just got approved to start building a greenhouse for this upcoming growing season. But real quick, background on our department. We have 8 staff members, which include Desiree Duncan, Raymond Paddock, Harold Jacobs, Irene Lampy, Sarah Scott, Kenneth Weitzel, and Dominique Stitt. We have multiple projects, which include transboundary river sampling in 4 different communities, our state and tribal response program, our harmful algal bloom program, which includes monitoring of shellfish and collection of them, sending them to the lab in Sitka at Seator. We have a climate change adaptation plan, our veterans allotment assistance program, our realty and probate program, and the new building of our food sovereignty program. We also have an upcoming program called the Guardians program, and that will be coming out in the next month or so. So we'll have more information for you guys later.
Thanks, Lindsey. It's really exciting to hear about all the programs that you have underway and in the future. And we'll touch on more of that throughout the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Elaine Schroeder, co-chair of 350 Juneau.
Elaine, you're muted.
Do it again. Okay, I get to try again. Okay, thanks so much for inviting our group, 350 Juneau Climate Action for Alaska, to be part of this symposium. I'm Elaine Schroeder, and I moved here about 40 years ago, so I've been here for quite a while, and I'm a retired psychotherapist. We are an all-volunteer, 350 Juneau is an all-volunteer nonprofit group that's part of an international grassroots climate organization, 350.org. We work at the local, state, as well as the national level to prevent the worst impacts of climate change and to promote a rapid and just transition to a clean energy economy. And we do this through education. And some of you may have attended one of our climate film series or heard one of our guest speakers or attended our weekly rallies while the legislature is in session. Even during COVID, we stay COVID safe. And we also are engaged in public policy advocacy and mobilizing people to take creative and effective action around climate change. Now, how we're perhaps different from the other organizations or businesses that are on the panel today is that we're working on systemic change. And that means we're holding our leaders accountable to climate science and social justice. And we challenge the political and economic systems that have led to this catastrophic climate change. We're holding the fossil fuel industry accountable for wrecking the planet. And you can see right now that I'll be approaching sustainability with quite a different perspective, one that looks at the larger system. In fact, there will be no skiing in a constantly warming climate. And we want to keep our winters cold. And I definitely want to keep skiing. As a matter of fact, I went skiing yesterday. That was cross country. So we oppose all new fossil fuel permitting, and we oppose the development of new fossil fuel infrastructure in Alaska, including the Arctic. Now, for almost 3 years, we've mounted a campaign, and this is our biggest campaign, to divest the Alaska Permanent Fund and our state pension funds from fossil fuel investments. Why? Because first of all, fossil fuel investments are tanking, absolutely tanking. We have to keep 80% of, the science says we have to keep 80% of all known fossil fuel reserves in the ground. So fossil fuel companies are going to end up with 80% of stranded assets. And but also the world is rapidly pivoting to renewables. And the second reason why we support divestment is because it is immoral to prop up an industry that is creating an unlivable planet. The science of this climate catastrophe was known over 30 years ago. And because the fossil fuel industry has been funding, and still does, front groups to lie about the dangers of climate change and oppose any meaningful climate action, we now have an immediate emergency on our hands. And 350 Juneau also supports environmental justice, which entails a fair and just transition to a post-carbon-based world economy with a more equitable distribution of wealth and resources. And climate justice to us includes recognizing and overcoming America's systemic racism and ending white privilege. It includes recognizing Indigenous rights and reversing the colonial settler relationship that poisons our society. and it includes ensuring that frontline communities, those who suffer disproportionately from the effects of the climate crisis, are treated fairly. The window for making gradual changes has passed. We now must make serious and radical changes that transform our political and economic structures in order for all of us to have a chance to survive on a sustainable planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. I appreciate all of that background and your drive to keep bringing this issue up and bringing it to the forefront and to the highest levels where it, hopefully real change can be made. So thanks for your passion and your drive for getting this very important topic to the forefront of the public and here in Juneau. All right, so now we'll move to the first of our panel questions, and I'm going to turn it over to Sonia for the first one. Thanks, Sonia.
Actually, I think we need to still introduce Kylie Ray.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Thank you. I'm
That's okay.
sorry, Kylie. I was getting ahead of myself.
That's okay.
Kylie, yes, our last panelist is Kylie Ray, co-owner of Panhandle Produce. Thank you, Kylie.
Okay, did that work? Can you all hear me? Okay, super. Hi, I'm Kylie Ray. I'm the panelist trying to slip under the radar here, but my husband and I are born and raised Juneauites. We co-own a local community farm store is what I've decided to call it. But it's a local foods marketplace based here in Juneau. Our focus and the purpose of our operation is to promote food security in our region. So that is supporting the growth of produce and the vendors and farmers who produce it here. Also trying to make sure that everybody has access to that kind of quality of food, that local can be a normal sort of synonymous with just your everyday grocery trip, that it doesn't have to be a topic of conspicuous consumption. We'll delve into that more specifically later, but always thinking about how to make that a normal thing for people in Southeast Alaska, and also to kind of engage people in the conversation about what it takes to grow food, produce it in other means, or support lifestyles that subsistence living or can kind of incorporate more community-centric focus into Southeast Alaska. So we've been in operation now for just over 2 years. My husband and I were small producers, small farmers prior to that, but we actually opened the brick and mortar store in 2018. And so that's what we are doing now. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Kylie. Yeah, it's definitely exciting to see your brick and mortar storefront, and glad that you've made it, through the first 2 years. Congratulations. That's a great asset for our community.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I'll turn it over to Sonia for our first question. Thanks, Sonia.
Yeah, thank you to all of you panelists for those great introductions. So to get started, I'd like to first ask Lindsey Pierce how your organization defines sustainability. Thank you.
At Tlingit and Haida, it is a somewhat new path we're taking. We're very excited. We want to be able to provide traditional foods and fresh produce. We all saw when the pandemic first hit, the grocery stores were wiped out. So we want to help in the sustainability of our community by starting this greenhouse, and we're very excited to get it built, hopefully by next summer.
Thanks. And does anybody else from the other groups want to talk about a definition of sustainability?
I'll try. So I guess I get the impression that this panel is mostly about environmental sustainability, but just in thinking about broader term, I guess, I came across the 4 pillars, being environmental, economic, social, and human. And I guess as a small business owner and small community resident, it's pretty clear how integrated all of those parts are into overall sustainability. So, you know, our healthy environment feeds into our healthy community, which feeds into our healthy economy. And as individuals, if we're not healthy, we're not able to keep going. So I guess for me, sustainability is all of those things combined to enable us to keep going forward, even when things are really hard, which they are a lot. That's what I would say about that.
Yeah, great. Thanks for defining all those different components of sustainability, at least one way of looking at it. Anybody else want to add to that? Yes, it's not just environmental, it's all those interlinked components, social, environmental, policy. Any other add-ons to that? Oh, economic as well.
I would agree with what Lindsey said, that there's definitely, yes, there's an economic component to sustainability. Of course, as you're a business owner, that's kind of, you know, always in your mind. How do you sustain your business on the one hand? But there's oftentimes this larger question for many of us, I think, especially in a year like this one, where you're thinking about, what's my role in contributing to the community I'm part of? And it can't just be the economic benefit. It has to be more, it has to be greater than that in order for your business to actually have that kind of a sustainability aspect, in my opinion. So I would just echo what Lindsey had stated, that there's a huge social element as well. And the people you are serving are part of your community, and your business literally cannot exist without them, you know, feeling that commitment that you have to them as well. And it's a mutual benefit there.
All right, thank you. Heidi, you want to go with the next question?
Yes. So I'll direct this first to Elaine, if you're up for it, to describe some sustainability related actions that your organization does. So you touched on some of these things already in your intro, but if you want to expand on anything further, that'd be great. Thank you.
Elaine, you need to unmute again. Sorry.
Thanks. So I appreciate it. As I said earlier, 350 Juneau views sustainability from a whole systems perspective. What we're looking at is a sustainable planet, so you can grow food for panhandle produce, so you can ski, so native subsistence activities can continue. All those things are on the bedrock of a stable climate, which we do not have. Right now, we're pitching for the abyss. So to go into detail about that, what I mean is that we understand that systemic corruption of our government, both state and national, by the fossil fuel industry has brought us to the brink of a climate disaster. And this corruption is historically why the US has not effectively grappled with the science of climate change. And think about how close this is to the current administration's response to the pandemic. I keep almost having a deja vu when I see the disaster that's occurring in the United States compared to those countries that have managed the epidemic very well. And of course, there are many countries that are doing very well. And even some states in the US are doing very well. For example, in the Northeast, there are very low COVID cases. But anyways, it's an interesting comparison. But corporate money buys elections and influences policy, and fossil fuel corporations fund politicians who vote the way oil companies want them to vote, obviously. And these politicians block meaningful legislation to curb emissions, so we have to vote them out. They vote to subsidize fossil fuel extraction. Too bad our initiative, Fair Share, didn't pass. We're past the point where individual actions will solve the climate crisis. If the fossil fuel giants would like us to believe, they want us to believe that it's our individual actions that has caused the climate emergency. They want us to believe that buying an electric car, which I have done, or using a green product will get them off the hook. While consuming responsibly is what a person should do. And I cheer on composting, electric vehicles, panhandle produce, all those things that create in the future, they're not creating sustainability now. We're not there yet because of the climate emergency, but they will in the future. So it is the right thing to do, but we have to do a lot more, and that is to challenge the power and economic structure of what's causing the crisis. So that's it. That's my response.
Thank you, Elaine. Now I'll open it up to any other panelists if you would like to further discuss any sustainability related actions that your organization is doing. Charlie?
Sorry, I don't have a webcam in my office, so I'm having to unmute on the phone. So I thought I'd tell you guys about some things that you might not know about Eagle Crest that we do that are pretty sustainable. First, we have a hydroelectric facility down at a power plant down in our maintenance shop. It's fed from Cropley Lake, which is a mid-mountain lake on the western ski area boundary. In the summer, we average 40 kilowatt hours of production, which is nearly enough to be 100% on-site power generation. We still pay demand charges to AEL&P, but the bills are much lower than in the winter. The new lodge has a high efficiency electric boiler, so that place is nice and warm. The old lodge, we just turn off the heat. Fortunately, that's where my office is, so I have an electric space heater plugged in the summer and keep warm. In the winter, we average about 10 kilowatts per hour production. Obviously, there's less water flowing in the colder months with freezing temps, but Cropley Lake does replenish a few times throughout the winter with snow melt. We also use this water for snowmaking, and I'm going to talk more about that as we get into other questions. We also monitor the lake level with a real-time measuring instrument. The second thing I think is super cool about Eagle Crest is we have our own water treatment facility. So all the water on campus, the drinking water, restrooms, fire suppression, everything, it all comes from our on-site water treatment plant. We call it Waterworks internally. It's fed from a creek, not Cropley Lake, but Mount Ben Stewart, the Wedding Bowl area. It's the large mountain just above the learning area. There's a water drainage. It goes into, we call it an infiltration gallery in the creek bed and then into the plant where it's filtered 3 more times than chlorinated. Another cool thing is just the Eagle's Nest compostable restroom up there, but I think I'll spare you the details on that one, though you can ask me about it later if you're interested.
Wonderful. Thanks, Charlie. Do any other panelists want to add anything about what your organization is doing related to sustainability?
I wanted to mention one thing. We're in the process of starting to put together an emergency management planning like Expo. So hopefully late spring. And the grant was written pre-COVID, so we were hoping for an in-person event. So we're having to switch to virtual, as is everybody. So we're hoping to get tribal members, community members, villages, people from all over Southeast to be able to learn how to prepare for any emergency situation, COVID related, it's like natural disasters. That's what I was trying to say, sorry. It's hopefully going to be a big event. So if anybody is interested, please get a hold of me. And we're still in the planning stages. So it'd be great to get as many partners as we can.
Thank you, Lindsay. That's great to hear. Do any of our other panelists want to respond to this question?
Other Lindsay, I'll just, I guess, let's see, there's a number of things that we're doing relating to sustainability, but I'd say the biggest one is our use of local wood for the cores of our skis. So it's pretty special and unique to be able to see directly where that large part of the ski comes from. So, you know, we have to ship in base material and the edges and a number of other components on the barge, but we have access to this amazing resource in our local forests. And so here's an opportunity to sustainably harvest and make use of this great resource right here. Don't have to ship it, don't have to worry about whatever forest practices are happening somewhere else. We don't have to go plant trees in Africa to offset our use. It's all happening right here, and we're able to support other small businesses, our Sawyer friends who mill it down for us and help our neighbors clear the deadfall out of their yard and save it from being turned to firewood. So that's exciting. And then the waste products get used for compost and for other things. So because we're small and have control over the whole process, you know, we're not outsourcing all of this stuff to China. It's all right here, and we pay for the stuff that we take to the dump. So we have, you know, not just like an ethical and you know, the desire to take care of the place that we live, but just like straight up monetary motivation to reduce our waste and reuse what we can, and reduce, reuse, recycle. You know, we're every year we're making progress at maximizing efficiency of the use of all these different materials and finding ways to use parts that would otherwise be wasted. One of our, we currently have two shops, one in town, and then our wood shop is an off-grid shop out at our house. And so it's been cool to see how many hours of sunlight does it take to run a bandsaw, and how, or like in the winter when we're not getting as much energy there, how many gallons of gas does it take to run a bandsaw to make 10 pairs of skis. So like I said, our small scale allows us to really see directly the costs associated, this environmental costs, human costs associated with all of these things. And I guess the final thing I'd say about what we're doing for sustainability is just investing in our community. So we do workshops with the school kids, and we try to facilitate community events that promote people's awareness, people's stewardship of the land. We support, I'm a board member on a local hut initiative, you know, and I don't know, I guess we do what we can to support the outdoor community, and thereby, I think that promotes greater stewardship in the community.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Lindsey, for your thoughts. Do any other panelists want to share anything your organization is doing related to sustainability? Go ahead, Kylie.
Okay, sure. So at the moment, we are trying to hit as many of the elements of sustainability as we can in just day-to-day operations. So be it using reusable bags, refillable containers. We did a lot more of these things also pre-COVID too, so I should probably caveat that there are some things that we've had to be more selective with there, but all the same, we're trying to kind of safely, slowly, incrementally increase back to what we had done pre-COVID, which was, refilling as many things as possible, using compostable materials, or letting people at least recycle things so that we're not just throwing out single-use packaging if possible. That was tricky, though, I will admit, with increased amount of PPE requirements, but that's a different question. So also just economic sustainability wise, we were trying to broaden the number of programs that we're participating in. So last year we did the Farmers Market Nutrition Program through WIC, and we're hoping that next year, once everything settles down, I'm going to try to go for the EBT food stamp program too, because it's also going to increase the accessibility of our products to more folks who may not otherwise shop with us for various reasons. And then let's see. And then composting was brought up too. So there's definitely some live growing happening in our store. If anybody who's actually come in, you'll see that there's like walls of microgreens being grown. And that used to be a hydroponic setup, so it was soilless medium. Now it's using soil, so we're actually able to take spent soil and then reuse that in either perennial beds or add it to our compost with other things, like if I had a bunch of parsley wilted or something like that, that right there goes into the compost bin, or somebody might have chickens or things like that. So there's those things. And then in terms of community sustainability, or I guess it's kind of social as well, we do support a number of not only local vendors in and of itself, but just the local food hub activity. So we host the distribution location for the Salt and Soil Marketplace, which is an online market and version of what we do, as well as various small cottage food producers who can do what's called a CSA, or a subscription service, where people can buy that specific product through that specific producer. And then there's that real transparent lane between producer consumer. So really you just use us as a pickup spot. So those are some things that we are currently doing to promote sustainability, but there's lots more on my list. So thank you.
Thanks, Kylie. All right, I'll turn it over to Will for our next question.
Yeah, and I think keeping our eye on the clock here, with it being 3:40, and making sure we have time for audience questions and participation and stuff, maybe we could jump down kind of to the end of our questions, just to leave a little bit of time. Okay, cool. Let's do that. So I guess a question for Lindsey then, with Fairweather, and really for any panelists here. I think often when people think about sustainable, it sounds expensive, right? Like I can think about the version of this for virtually like anything we can buy. And so my kind of larger question here, maybe a good one to round things out with, is what are your thoughts on the cost of sustainability, since this cost and value question is so much bigger than money, as all the or for all the reasons that we've seen so far?
Yeah, it is. It's a complex equation, but it's easy to boil it down to that dollar figure on the price tag. And I'd say that the outdoor industry in particular has a lot of work to do on accessibility, whether that's through cost, or I guess, yeah, cost is often big barrier to accessibility to skiing in particular. So what about that? So Fairweather skis, for example, the dollar cost is a lot more than you could get from the internet that came from China and are made with a bunch of stuff that you don't know the names of. But they're not as expensive as some other ones that are from China and made with a bunch of stuff you don't know the name of. And we work really hard to make so we try to make our most sustainable models of skis the least monetarily expensive. So there's a number of different ways to build a ski and different things you can put into them. But like a solid wood construction ski costs less than one that's made with plastic sidewalls. And so you get less microplastics put into the system, and you get extra money for something else, for your healthy greens maybe. So that's one way that we're trying to combat that cost hurdle. Another way is work trade. I think, as we as a society goes forward and thinks about resilience, the more community connections and community resources we have, the better off we're going to be. So enabling people to to pay with their time to come in and help in the shop in exchange for some or part of the cost of their skis is something that you're not going to get ordering online, So as Will said, there's a lot of different ways to think about cost, but because we're local here, we're able to factor in some of those other ways more than other companies could. Yes. Yeah. I could go on for a long time.
Thanks. And then just with our eye on the clock here, does anybody want to jump in for another minute? After that, we should probably turn it over to audience questions. Yeah, Charlie, you want to go ahead real quick?
Yeah, I have one that's just could throw out some interesting dollar amounts. So 3 of our 4 chairlifts at Eagle Crest are on the power grid, which is great, renewable hydroelectric ALMP power. But the 4th lift, Black Bear chairlift, is not. That's on the mid-mountain. So it is connected to a diesel generator. So we've explored connecting it to the grid, but the last estimate we got for that project was like $700,000. So financial sustainability doesn't align with environmental sustainability in this instance, because it's about $80 a day to run it on diesel. So unfortunately, that's sort of the operation, that we're looking at now. But it's just, it's sustainability can be expensive for a small little ski area to do a better job.
All right, well, 3:45, let's hear from some folks in the audience. Do you have any questions for our panelists, or any thoughts you want to add to keep this conversation going?
I'm not seeing any questions. Oh, a question just came through in the chat from Jacob. And I'll just read your question, Jacob. It says, why aren't there compost bins for apple and banana scraps on campuses and government buildings? Then that could be donated to local farmers. I think a key to sustainability is waste management. Do any of our panelists have any responses to that? Kylie, are you nodding? Don't mean to put you on the spot, but you look eager.
That was a hard nod, yeah. I agree. I think that is definitely an important element, and maybe something that, you know, fits in the one of the questions about what our communities in Southeast at least could consider doing to kind of set us up for success. There are some, I mean, there are some businesses that we've collaborated with, and in the way that we can kind of use materials to cut down on waste streams. So I can use an example of breweries in town. We're actually right across from a pretty big one here in Juneau, but they have all this spent grain that is perfect for using in compost, using as chicken feed potentially, or incorporating into many garden purposes. Actually, you can do a lot with spent grain, but that's just one example. I think that compost is something that is starting to pick up a little more momentum, but it's something that everybody could probably participate in fairly readily. And yes, I think having it near, you know, public facility spaces would make it a little easier for people to participate in that. And that would be, there'd be so much value add potential there. So yes to that idea.
All right, I see another question in the chat from Devin, who says, I wonder why we are abstaining from fossil fuel extraction now while there is still plenty of oil to be extracted now. At some point, we will run out of oil and will be forced to develop more sustainable ways of generating power. Do any of the panelists want to speak to that question?
I can.
Thanks, Elaine.
What's the question? Why are we not using the resources we have already in the ground? Is that would you read the question again?
Yes, it's why are we abstaining from fossil fuel extraction now, or trying to, while there is still plenty of oil to be extracted? At some point we'll run out and then we'll be forced to have more sustainable ways.
Oh, well, the reason is that many a study, it's a consensus among climate scientists that 80% of known fossil fuel reserves have to stay in the ground, cannot be extracted to keep the planet livable. We're on the brink of the planet not even being livable for us humans. So the reason not to wait until all the carbon reserves are used up is that we really would be extinct well before those carbon reserves would be used up.
Thank you, Elaine. All right, I think we probably have time for one more question that I see in the chat. It looks like it's another question related to fossil fuels from Michael. How would you respond to the idea that divesting from fossil fuels domestically means we import more from places that extract oil less sustainably?
We are not talking just about domestically. We're talking about all the fossil fuel companies, from BP to Shell to Exxon. These are multinational companies. It could be a company in Saudi Arabia. We're promoting divestment from the whole fossil fuel industry.
Thanks, Elaine. Heidi, there's also a question from Matt Berry asking about the collaboration among other small business owners in town, and maybe Lindsey Pierce can also talk to that in terms of Tlingit and Haida. How about collaborating in the region to help strengthen this effort for local resilience, sustainability? Is there much communication within Southeast Alaska?
At Tlingit and Haida, I personally have not been part of any conversations like that. Our greenhouse is still in the works, and so is our emergency management planning. So we still have a lot of new programs, so we're not quite to that step yet.
Yeah, I'm excited for your expo next spring that you say you're planning. It seems like that's a great way to bring in a bunch of other interests and would serve the public. So I'll get in touch with you about that one.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, well, that hour went fast. I really enjoyed it. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks in particular to our panelists, Charlie, Kylie, Lindsey, and Elaine. Thanks to the Sustainability Committee members that were here as well. And don't hesitate to reach out to any of us at the Sustainability Committee at UAS if you have ideas about what we can do to make our campus and our community more sustainable. If you're a student, if you want to get involved with a sustainability club, please let us know as well. So we are an enthusiastic group of people eager to do the work and would love to talk with you further. And thanks to our Power and Privilege Symposium hosts as well. Thank you for organizing this.
Thank you so much, Heidi, and all of your wonderful panelists. It's really an interesting session, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here today.